North Sea. From its windswept shores to quaint cities with their windmills and quiet canals, the Netherlands depends on water as its lifeline. But hidden below the surface of Dutch waters lie hundreds of sunken ships threatening the nation's livelihood. As the world's sea trade grows in size, Europe's maritime gateway must remain free of juggernauts. In the summer of 2013, the Dutch government began an extraordinary campaign to clean out the nation's channels of old shipwrecks, silent dangers rusting under the surface for decades. The waterways of the Netherlands are the vital lifeline for the whole of Europe. Whether through the Rhine estuary or the ports of Rotterdam, goods and raw materials make their way through Dutch national waters to Germany, the continent's powerhouse. But wrecks litter the sea floor and create dangerous bottlenecks in supply lines, posing a serious hazard to the nation's economy. The wrecks either needed to be removed or reduced in height to ensure free passage of the giant cargo ships that Europe's economy depends on. Every year, the Dutch government's Ministry of Public Works, the Rijkswaterstaat, orders a clean-out of the nation's port approaches. The 4 wrecks to be salvaged in this job were an unknown wreck lying on the bottom of the Ijol Channel, the Ariana cargo ship which blocked the Westerschelde waterway, the Jan Breydel fishing boat lying in the entry channel to Rotterdam's Europort, and an 1860s steamship lying off the island of Vlieland. In 2013, 2 companies were commissioned to do the job: salvage giant Smith Salvage and the family-run company of Van den Herk.
Most of the economic power in Europe is coming from our neighbors on the east. So Holland is situated very well for the connection of the big river Rhine, you can say, or Waal in Holland. We are naturally found a good position because the river is there, and the big steel companies were in the 1880s in Germany. So we are connected together by nature.
Well, they wanted to make the approaches to the harbors more safe, and there were some obstacles in the way. And so this is all about safety and getting a more efficient sailing to and from the ports.
Here in the headquarters of Van den Herk in Sliedrecht, east of Rotterdam, Salvagemasters and engineers plan the operation down to each minute detail using the latest 3D modeling and mapping technology.
We had the wrecks in the Westerschelde, the entrance to Antwerp, and we had a wreck on the north above the island of Vlieland.
Meanwhile, in their nearby shipyard, welders prepare the buckets and grippers used on the barges in the open sea. Van den Herk is a medium-sized company, but it stays at the forefront of salvage technology by engineering and constructing most of its own equipment. This way, they can tailor each barge, gripper, or tool for the particular ship salvage or dredging job that lies ahead. With hundreds of shipwrecks littering the sea floor, there is no lack of work. The Van den Herk fleet of barges and work units is constantly making Holland's waterways safer.
Yeah, we have engineering department inside, and we have the guys with the good brains outside. Never forget that. When theory and practice on this point where it cuts, there is the truth of the best equipment, then we think we have to do it ourselves to be one step better as the other companies. There's always competition, and like in football, only the best is in the team.
The Westerschelde is the segment of the Rhine estuary that runs between the Netherlands and Belgium to Antwerp. 200 million tons of cargo pass through here every year. Until 2013, its navigation was hampered by the wreck of the Ariana, a cargo ship that sank in 1952. René Tromp is Van den Herk's supervisor on the big wreck removal operations.
The Ariana is a ship which sunk in 1952 because the pilot made a shortcut and made a big mistake by taking the shortcut too late with falling water. So it got stuck, and after 2-3 hours of pulling with of trying to get off the sandbank, it broke.
The salvage work was authorized by the Dutch Ministry for Infrastructure and Environment. At the end of August 2013, Minister Melanie Schultz-Van Hagen visited the salvage operation to get a hands-on feel for how the channel clearing was proceeding.
Helemaal weghalen is vaak heel moeilijk, omdat ze zeker na zoveel jaar echt al helemaal in het zand liggen. Dat geldt ook voor dit schip. Dus er zit gewoon voor een deel ondergronds. Nou, dan maakt het ook niet zoveel uit. Maar het deel wat erboven zit en wat geraakt kan worden, dat halen we eigenlijk weg.
Het blijft dus een soort blind date onder water, waarin je op basis van de scans die je hebt van de bodem en van het schip probeert om het op een gecontroleerde manier boven te brengen. En op dit moment lukt dat aardig.
Ja, het is natuurlijk leuk om te doen. Je moet eerst een paar keer grijpen voordat je echt een stuk schip te pakken hebt. Maar dan trilt zo'n apparaat heel erg. En vervolgens kun je dat ijzer weer mee omhoog krijgen en op het schip leggen. En dan is weer een stukje werk gedaan.
So yeah, old ship loaded with iron material is that one big clump of iron, and that's why we invented teeth. I had the idea together with our chief the technical department to rip all the especially the iron parts apart and then pick them up with the excavator.
When the Ariana sunk here in the Westerschelde in 1952, it was carrying iron bars. Salvagemasters had to cut off any part of the ship that protruded above 15 meters depth, but the ship's cargo hampered the work. Accurate survey of the wreck site is vital for success.
The hardest part was from that ship we knew which ship it was, but what was the front and what was the back was not very clear. So we really have to, we discussed after each session. We only could work there with low water, with the two excavator engineers with me from what is it, and oh, that's the back and that's a part of the ship. But the part between the cargo hull and the engine room, there was one very tough part we hardly could get.
If removing the Ariana wreck proved a technological challenge, René's next task would prove hazardous too, due to the location of the wreck. The sea off the island of Vlieland is one of the most dangerous in the Netherlands. Meanwhile, the Smit teams had just come off their part of the cleanup campaign with a spectacular raising of the Jan Breydel fishing boat. Smit Salvage was commissioned by the Rijkswaterstaat to remove 2 wrecks from the North Sea. Kees van Essen is Smit Salvage's head of operations and is responsible for selecting new Salvagemasters.
Select our Salvagemasters from the merchant marine, so people who have been at sea like myself for 10-15 years, being a chief officer or even a captain, and then when we have a vacancy, we have some people who are interested in the job. We test them thoroughly, and then they are sent out on the job.
The biggest challenges for Salvagemasters is not always salvaging the ship, but rather coordinating the many interested parties who must work together on projects like these, which are national in scale. With its great maritime tradition, it is no surprise that the Netherlands boasts the largest salvage companies in the world. They draw their young resources from the merchant marines, which in turn is supplied with well-trained personnel by specialized facilities such as this one in Rotterdam, the STC school where students learn the basics of nautical engineering.
I think you have to, you need a person, and it can be, we have also one female salvage master, so it's not especially a man. But you need a person who can deal with authorities, can deal with manage a team, but also knows what he's talking about, so he knows what the ship is. And he has to very well cooperate with the superintendent of the team and the team itself, because that are the guys who have a long training and experience in the salvage operations.
I think there is almost always there is danger in our job, because we work in difficult, strange and dangerous environments. So the vessel could be on fire, or the vessel could be aground, leaking, possible to break or to sink. So there is always the possibility that complications would turn up, and that the whole situation would become from dangerous to really, really dangerous, and even that you have to evacuate your own personnel from the vessel.
Smith Salvage has been contracted to remove 2 deep wrecks: the unknown wreck lying upside down in the Ijol Canal, and the Jan Breydel in the approaches to Rotterdam. Their campaign started in early summer 2013, and they would employ their largest barges and sheer legs to do the job. Captain Bart Huitzing is the salvage master who ran the Jan Breydel operation.
Jan Breydel was standing straight up on the seabed, fully intact, as we could see from the survey data. So we decided to use one of our tug lifts, this time the tug lift 7, to lift a complete wreck in one time from the seabed. We decided to lift her in one piece, because it would be more efficient, more quick, and also less danger for our divers.
July 2013. Captain Bart Huitzing inspects the material to be transferred to the sheer leg, and soon the team is ready to leave.
We used one of our Smith barges and 2 tugboats to accompany us and to assist us. And this was the main spread which we used during the wreck removal operations.
All the equipment what we need, depending of the salvage, come from the warehouse here in Rotterdam. We have a lot of pumps, a lot of dive equipment, air diving, saturation diving. Everything is here in Rotterdam. There is nothing on a shear leak. If you like to have a shear leak, then all the equipment is coming from Rotterdam, the warehouse.
Jan Breydel is a fishing vessel, a kotter we call it. It's about 35 meters long. It used to fish within the channel off the coast of Belgium. And it got hit in 1988, if I'm not mistaken, by a freight carrier, a normal vessel, and it sank almost instantly.
Salvage masters must first gather necessary data and coordinates for locating the shipwreck and determining its condition.
Well, basically we need a good survey. Quite often we also do our own dive surveys, just to see with our own eyes what the situation is below the seawater.
The call goes out to the divers and technicians, who must be ready at a moment's notice to take off on their next international salvage mission.
When they give me a call exactly in the night, then I say goodbye to family. I take my suitcase and I take a taxi, and they bring me to Rotterdam Airport or to Schiphol.
10 years beforehand, Smith had used its shear legs and its cutting-edge technology to remove the Tricolor, which sank nearby with its cargo of 3,000 automobiles in December 2002, while traveling from Belgium to the UK after a collision with another container ship. No lives were lost, but the ship remained stuck in the mud in a waterway that was just 30 meters deep. The salvage operation in 2003-2004 used a unique cutting wire to carve the wreck into 9 sections, each one a whopping 3,000 tons. The massive shear legs that Smith used can raise weight of up to 4,000 tons. In the summer of 2013, Bart decided since they could do it, they would raise the wreck of the Jan Breydel wholly intact. They needed divers to check the situation of the wreck, however, and to clean out any debris in the way of the slings.
Every salvage job we start with is starting with a dive inspection, so we know the situation near and on the wreck.
Divers doing the inspection must stay underwater hours at a time in order to pinpoint weak and strong areas of the vessel that can best hold slings and cables. They usually wear this helmet to communicate with a computer above the surface through dedicated cables.
This is a super light. He's very light. It's about 17 kilo. It's not so super light. And this one is the umbilical. The umbilical go to the dive panel and to the helmet. Inside of one of this umbilical is air, light, video, depth meter. Sometimes it will be digger, and then it's also hot water for saturation for the suits.
Because the Jan Breydel was intact and standing straight up on the bottom of the sea floor, divers were able to quickly make their determinations.
We found that we had good points where we could attach the slings to. So we were quite confident after the first 2 dives that we could manage and we could do this job. Actually quite rapidly also, because everything was free and we did not have to do any additional work such as airlifting or removal of quite a lot of sediment. This was we could do everything in one time.
The fishing boat, similar to so many that ply their trade through the North Sea, lay upright, so divers were able to slip the first sling under the rudder and propeller fairly easily. The bow was more of a problem, however.
Well, the sling on the aft ship was fairly easy because the so-called window near to the rudder and the propeller was free, so we could easily bring the aft sling underneath. The forward sling was a little bit more difficult. We had to lift her with one sling, and to make some more room between the keel of the vessel and the seabed, so which would enable us to put a forward sling also in the correct position. So it would be one stable hoist.
There was a little bit space underneath the Jan Breydel. Then we put a big steel wire. We put it underneath. It was more than enough. I thought about 2 meters. Then we heave it up. We have a lot of space more. Then we bring another a double steel wire underneath. Then we touch it down. And on the shaft we have also a space. And then we bring the other steel wire.
Under the hydraulic pull of the massive shear leg, the Jan Breydel began to gradually emerge from the abyss of the North Sea. Salvagemasters monitored her slow rise to the surface. The intact boat was a spectacle to see, covered with mollusks and sea creatures of every kind, and rusted by her years underwater.
Right, go, that's a nice one, for the kids, eh?
Yeah, the kids, for your boy.
Yeah, that's nice.
Once brought up from the dark depths, the sunken fishing boat took on the spooky aura of a ghost ship.
Right, go, that's a nice one, for the kids, eh?
Yeah, the kids, for your boy.
Yeah, that's nice.
By the end of August 2013, the Van den Herk team has successfully reduced the Ariana wreck to a safe height and now turns its attention to another wreck that sank in the 1800s off the windy island of Vlieland in the north of Holland. The remote area of Northern Ireland is an important shipping route because Northern Holland's renewable energy industry is rapidly expanding, requiring larger vessels to have access to its power plants.
From the North Sea to Eemshaven in the north, we have the port of Groningen, and Groningen has developed an area of big importance called Eemshaven with power plants and windmill energy. So big expanding in Groningen, Eemshaven. And for the power plants there is a need of bigger ships.
In 2012, Van den Herk was involved in a massive cleanup of the northern approaches to the Dutch city of Groningen, strategic to the nation due to its massive wind farms. Here, Van den Herk partnered with another company to raise a number of wrecks that littered the sea floor, but had to carefully avoid damaging vital underwater power cables. It was a delicate task. Now Van den Herk was contracted to clean up a wreck close to the windswept shores of Vlieland in the north of Holland. In this operations room, Van den Herk engineers and salvage technicians study all there is to know about the tides, shifting sands, and Dutch waterways they are called upon to keep clean. Like in all salvage operations, a number of things can go wrong.
You have to cope with the elements, and you have to have luck or bad, and a very good plan and good equipment and very, very good people who stands for the job. I think that's all elements make you successful or not.
As the Van den Herk teams left for the port of Harlingen, the October storms were on their way. They had a short window of good weather in which to complete the work, so they hoped to find the wreck quickly. Dawn rises on the flat lands of Holland. Children make their way to school in the characteristic port town of Harlingen. On the quayside, the crew of two barges, the Prince 4 and the Prince 5, prepare for their extraordinary mission out into the North Sea. The team must work fast into good weather because the sea around Vlieland is known to be treacherous for ships in bad weather. The hundreds of shipwrecks lying at the bottom of the sea attest to the dangers of the area. René Tromp is the supervisor of this operation too. He must oversee every detail of the complex effort to clear the Dutch channels so they are deeper and can accommodate bigger vessels.
I think a lot of commercial merchandising is still going over the sea, especially in Holland with a few big harbors. So it's very important for Holland and the Dutch government to keep clear of all their the main sea routes. Deeper, so they can have bigger ships, but also the main routes to the harbors has to grow with them.
On the barge, salvage workers under his command check every cable and piece of equipment to make sure the gear is operational before setting sail. With him is surveyor Bram van der Kooi. They employ a mix of new technology and traditional methods to get the job done. Very little is known about the wreck they must salvage, as it sunk in 1866.
The actual name of the wreck it's the Millbank. It's been reported missing in 1866, and its cargo was bags of meal and wool. And a few days after it was reported missing, the beaches of Vlieland were full of sacks with meal, and the people of Vlieland sold it and made sweaters of it. So that's why the archaeologists think it's that ship.
The crew sets sail with the barges in tow. The weather is fair and hopes are high they will soon be able to find the ship on the first day out. The waters off Vlieland are lined with wrecks of all kinds. Finding the right one will be a challenge. The Prince 5 is a jack-up barge with 3 20-meter-long legs. These legs are lowered down to rest firmly on the sea floor. Once there, they turn the floating barge into a stable platform from which to work with the diggers and grabbers. These pontoons can be transported with tugs to salvages or ship disasters all over the world.
A pontoon, it's Prince 5. It's a pontoon from 40 by 10 meters, and there's a big excavator on it, 120 ton. It can reach until 14-15 meters under the waterline, and we got a big cutting teeth on it, so we can rip the wreck apart. Afterwards we put on a normal digging bucket to grab the pieces which have been ripped apart.
The transport barge is also the crew's accommodation, kitchen, and of the 2 vessels, the only one that actually has an engine.
The other material that we're having here is the Prince 4. It's an old ship from the Dutch army. They used to bring tanks from Harlingen to Vlieland, so we bought it and we put a crane on it. And in this job it's for moving around, because the Prince 5 has no own propellers.
Herman and Dirk are the crane operators, and they manage the hydraulic systems aboard the jack-up barge. The accommodation barge is an old military transport and is perfectly suited to carrying the debris from the wreck and the heavy equipment. GPS satellite systems locate the barge precisely, and the monitor indicates the estimated position of the wreck with the vertical and horizontal elevations. It is the task of René and Bram to provide accurate information to the crane operators. The barge is then positioned carefully over exactly where the computers determined it to be, and the crane is prepared for its fishing operation.
When we start the job, there's been a survey done by a third company, so it's we have no influence on it. So we get that survey and we take a look from what surface do we have to reach and make free. We put that in the crane and there we start working on that.
The coordination between man and machine is delicate. The computer tells the crane operator exactly where to position the bucket and grabber. It is time to start the underwater expedition.
From the archaeologist, we've got a rather precise survey and also a description what's the front of the ship and what's the back of the ship. From the historical museum they've got here. All those information has been put together by the archaeologist, and they give me a form, so that's why I got my information.
This map shows the Vlieland sea floor covered with dozens of wrecks from centuries gone by. It is one of the world's busiest sea lanes, running from the channel ports of France and England up past the largest port in the world to the far north. Tankers and transport vessels share the sea with fishing boats from the Dutch ports. This is an area Van den Herrik knows well. There is no way of bringing the whole ship up, so René and his men have no choice but to break it up. The main thing they are looking for is the engine, the boiler, something that can identify the wreck for posterity and for the records of the Dutch government. The surveyor sets the depths for the digger arm so as to be sure to reach the sunken ship, but still the wreck remains elusive as the current slowly pushes the barge off sight. Every couple of hours, the captain orders a repositioning. Several times a day, René and Bram go out in the survey boat to carry out a multi-beam reconnaissance of the wreck. To calibrate the sonar data properly, Bram uses this sensor to measure the speed of sound underwater.
I drop it to the bottom, and then it registrates on every meter what is the speed, the sound speed of the water. So on every meter I'll get a speed.
This way, the sonar that René lowers from the bow of the survey boat can accurately map out horizontal and vertical elevations of the wreck. He compiles a day-by-day report as to progress, and Bram passes this data on to the monitors in the crane cabin.
We have a system on it with the GPS, and there are all kinds of sensors who are measuring how the boom and the stick and the bucket go. And in combination with the GPS system, we exactly know how deep he is with the bucket.
This allows the crane operators Dirk and Herman to fix any machinery. Crane operators continue their search, adjusting the equipment to the new data being given by the sensors underwater. They don't find the shipwreck on the first try, or the second, or the third. It is an imprecise science that takes patience and skill. Then suddenly, the barge shudders. The monitor shows that they have reached the right depth, and now the correct coordinates too. The hook has pierced the wreck's rusting hull. It comes thundering down onto the transport barge. The bolts and welding betray the age of the ship. It looks like an 1860 steamer, but only finding the boiler will be decisive in identifying it once and for all. Crabs scuttle away. Herman, the crane operator, finds an interesting artifact, one of the ship's portholes. It has been twisted under the pressure of the waves. None of the crew survived the shipwreck, and now René and his team saw firsthand what was left of that tragedy. As the coupled barges realign with the wreck, René and Bram go back out to survey the sea floor and estimate the height to which they must cut the wreck. Their biggest problem now is positively identifying it so that the Rijkswaterstaat can be sure that the obstacle they had identified has indeed been removed.
When we really find the engine, there's an engine number in it, and so they can prove it's the ship.
Aboard, Dirk is still using the survey data installed in his cabin computer to aim at the wreck, attempting to remove whole pieces. The search is on for the boiler.
Tonight, with low water, we're gonna try to get 2 spots with a bucket, and we can do that in one low water tide. After we done that tonight, they're gonna build up with the grabber to try to get hold of the motor.
Now that Salvagemasters have located the wreck with certainty, they must change the hook and put on the bigger bucket to bring up the larger pieces of the wreck. It takes a whole team to swap the massive pieces of equipment. Finally, the large bucket with teeth is lowered into the water. It hits its goal immediately. More pieces of the Millbank are brought to the surface. But as the sun sets, and the day's work nears its end, there is another complication: Mother Nature. A storm is brewing, and the crew must begin to batten down the hatches. These coasts are among the most dangerous, especially during inclement weather. It is the north wind that has caused so many ships to sink off this coast. René has no choice but to call in the tugboats. They have to go to safer waters. A storm is brewing over Vlieland, but the Van den Herik crew does not stop working. They prepare the equipment for the next day's operations. Dawn rises over Vlieland and the storm has subsided. The barges take up their positions of the previous day and the search for the boiler of the Millbank begins. As pieces of the wreck mount up, the crew search for clues to its identity. From the remains, they believe that the ship is the Millbank, which was recorded by the Lloyd's Register as being lost on this coastline in 1866. In order to prove it, however, the crew still has to find the boiler, breaking up the superstructure as much as possible to expose the engine room. The storm has left choppy seas, and the tides affect the depth they can work at. The tide is low, and the wind has calmed. In the early hours of the morning, Dirk strikes something hard with the bucket. He has come to know the wreck like the back of his hand, and he thinks he knows what the hard and heavy object is. Before the hunt for the boiler can be concluded, however, the crew realize that the two barges have moved apart during the windy night. For perfect accuracy in removing the boiler, they have to be tied back together again, an operation that is easier said than done. Once again, the grabber is put on. Once the gripper is on, it can be located to the exact spot of the heavy object, which they believe is the boiler. The brittle iron that comes up confirms their hopes that the piece is too heavy to lift intact. The operation takes several days, and the sea has become rough, making accurate surveys harder. However, only at the end of it can René feel satisfied.
We also removed the boiler. It was a little bit too high, but because it was too big to tear apart at that depth, approximately 30 tons, 35 tons, we couldn't lift it on board. Dragged it to shallow water, and then we left it for a few days, and today we flushed it a little bit so that it was cleaner. All the mud was out, and then we torn it apart, and yet it's on deck.
Piece by piece, the engine of the Millbank is broken up and brought on deck. It piles up sadly on the barge, ready for official inspection. As soon as it leaves the sea floor, it begins to rust and decay. Every sort of ship goes by as the remains of the Millbank are brought to the surface. The company compliance officer takes pictures to show the Reichswasserstat. He collects the survey data gathered by René.
This week we achieved almost everything we wanted. There are only 2 or 3 small points this morning who are still above the level that we have to reach. So we moved those this morning, and then I hope with the survey from this afternoon that everything is free of objects.
At the end of the summer cleanup campaign, the Van den Herik team write their final report for the Dutch government. The Westerschelde and seas off Vlieland are safe for large ships. Close by, at the Smith Salvage yards, the salvage team that pulled up the Jan Breydel in 2013 can also be proud of their work. As the largest salvage company in the world, Smith can count on the most powerful shear legs. The Smith equipment is built to raise the biggest and the smallest of wrecks.
In the end, we had roughly around 600-650 tons on the. It's a little bit difficult to say because the water is still dripping out and some sediment is still dripping out. Tucklift 7 can lift 1,200 tons, so it would be well within the capacity of the tucklift to lift the Jan Breydel.
As the Jan Breydel was transferred to be broken up on the Smith transport barge, the team moved north to reduce the unknown wreck in the Igel Canal using Smith's giant grabbers. This too had been a question of simply reducing the height of a sunken ship.
Wreck is positioned within the new approach to IJmuiden port. They also want to be able to bring in more deeper draught vessels, but nobody knows what this wreck is, when it sank. They believe it would be between 1910 and 1920.
We had a big crab in our share leak, in the Tucklift 6, and it's on shore you see some grabs, but this one is huge. It's about wide 7 meters. When it is open, it's 7 meters wide. Okay, we lower it down. We lower it down like this, touch the bottom, then we go with 50 tons, we close it, we make more force in it, then it keeps about 100 tons like that. The weight of the grab is about 90 ton, 90 ton. Then we grab them and then we go slowly up. When it is on the surface, big barges are coming. The barge, we bring it very close to the share leak, and then slowly down, lower, open, and then it's fall down, and then we do the same thing again.
With 2 wreck removals each, Smith Salvage and Van den Herrik have both helped to make Dutch waters safer for the biggest transport ships in the world. The Millbank and the Ariana have been successfully removed. The Jan Breydel has been brought up in one majestic piece, and the mystery steamship has been cleared from its dangerous resting place. Each year, salvage operations like these are helping to make the Dutch channels deeper and safer, able to accommodate even bigger ships that are the lifeblood of Europe's new economy. But while 4 wrecks have been removed, there are still many more on the seabed. And as the sun sets on the North Sea, a lonely lighthouse signals the dangers of the shallow waters, a reminder of the graveyard of ships just below the surface of the sea.